The other day, I was doing an Ask Me Anything on Marriage Helper's Instagram, which if you're not following, you should definitely go follow. And in this weekly Ask Me Anything that I do, I came across a question that really caused me to pause and wonder why this person was asking it. It was a very unique question. It was a woman and she was asking, my husband and I are reconciling and I'm wondering if I forgave him too soon. Now, there's a reason that this is really important, and there's something very critical about forgiveness that you need to understand. And I'm going to share that with you in just a minute. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Kimberly Holmes. I'm the CEO of Marriage Helper. Be sure to subscribe to our channel here at Marriage Helper because every week we're releasing new content that have to do with questions to your relationship problems. So hit subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be notified every time something new releases, which is multiple times a week. Also, be sure that you go and follow us on Instagram at Marriage Helper, where every week we're releasing tons of content as well as a weekly Ask Me Anything where you can ask your questions, and every week I go through and answer a few of them to give you real guidance and hope in whatever your relationship is going through. So a couple of days ago on Instagram, when this woman asked me, did I forgive my spouse too soon? The reason that it caused me to pause is because I recalled in that instant all of the times in my personal life, but even what I've heard from friends, from clients, from people that I've worked with about how many times they have held on to resentment, to unforgiveness. I have a family member who really has struggled with the ability to not forgive, or I guess I should say the inability to forgive another person in her life who has hurt her for the past several years. And it's something that comes up seemingly in almost nearly every conversation we end up having. And it's something that affects her relationships with everyone else in her life because of the inability to forgive. Another instance I've seen this has even been in my own life where I have really struggled with holding on to resentment and not wanting to forgive, and how much that has just ended up hurting me well before it's hurt anything else in my life. And so when I saw this woman's question, I thought, I don't know that you can ever forgive too soon. In my favorite book, it says that even when a person hurts you, you should forgive them 70 times, 7 times, basically meaning that forgiveness is something you do for you. It's something you do to release anger, to release resentment, ultimately to release the feeling of wanting to take vengeance on a person for something that they did to you. And if we look at the research and the psychology behind forgiveness, we see that actually forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's something called decision-based forgiveness. So often we think that we need to feel like we're ready to forgive before we actually make the move to forgive, before we actually say the words, I forgive you. We think it's a feeling that precedes that. But in actuality, it's very rare that you're going to feel like you are ready to forgive or that you need to forgive, because we are blinded and biased by our hurt, by the betrayal, by all of the feelings that go before us, that it is rare that we feel ready to forgive. Forgiveness instead is a decision. It's a decision I make to release my hurt, my pain. That doesn't mean I forget it. Forgive and forget isn't a thing. You will always remember it. But the question becomes, are you going to let the remembrance of it let you stay stuck in the past and tied to the hurt? Or are you going to remember it in a way where you say, it happened, but I choose to move forward from that. I choose to be focused on my future and where we can move going forward, where I can move going forward, as opposed to being tied to my past. I choose to forgive as opposed to holding something against someone. And I don't know that you can ever do that too soon. I think the quicker we are to forgive, the more healing it is for us in general, the more healthy it is for us. Unforgiveness, you can even look at the research, how unforgiveness leads to health problems. People are more likely to become sick over time because they're holding on to resentment, is the bottom line. Forgiveness allows you to be free from that. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you condone what another person has done, and it doesn't mean that you are giving permission for the person to continue to do it to you. It simply means that you are choosing to release your need for vengeance in that situation. I've heard it said before how the lack of forgiving or unforgiveness is like you drinking poison and expecting someone else to die from it. Because we are the ones who feel those negative effects, who feel the hurt over and over, the pain, the resentment, the trauma of it over and over. And we're expecting that something somewhere, somehow is going to cause the other person to hurt as much as we have. The bottom line of it is we can never be sure that that is going to happen. Even more than that, even if the other person does hurt, it's never going to satisfy what happened to us. It's an insatiable desire, and it's not healthy, it's not productive, it's not good for you, and it's definitely not good for your relationship if it's a relationship you're looking to reconcile. So in this instance where there's a spouse and you're reconciling, and maybe this is you in your situation where you're moving past a hurt or a betrayal, or you're starting to put your marriage back together and you want to forgive your spouse, or maybe you don't want to forgive your spouse, but you know that you should, because the fear is if I forgive them, it just shows them that what they did is okay. And then the fear is, what if they do it again? Well, here's the thing. You can't prevent the other person from doing it again anyway. You can never control that. And so the best and healthiest thing for you to do for you is to release yourself from the resentment, from holding on to it, from holding that grudge, from trying to instill that justice and vengeance in your own life, and simply forgive. And I don't know that you can ever do it too soon. I think instead what this woman meant when she asked this question was that her and her spouse, as they were reconciling, she forgave, and perhaps she feels like she did it too soon because they started to move forward and they never dealt with some of the hurt and the betrayal and the pain from the past. Now, in the forgiveness process, which I don't have time to get into here, but in the process, especially if you're reconciling the relationship that caused the hurt, then it is important at some point for both parties to speak what happened to them, to make sure that the other person understands the depth and extent of the hurt that they have gone through. Because if my husband and I went through a terrible time in our marriage, which we did, so if we, from that time that we went through in our marriage several years ago, if we had gotten back together and never talked about what happened, if I never had the opportunity to share with Rob the hurt that I felt, why I felt that way, not in a way that was attacking him, but in a way that was sharing what happened to me, in a way that I wanted him to understand so I felt like he could empathize with it. If I never shared that and I never felt like he understood my pain, then it might be easier for me to stay stuck there, because I'm always going to want for him to just understand and recognize it, even though he's never going to be able to experience it the way that I did. The lies that he had told, the things that we went through, the betrayal that happened, if I just had to shut that inside and act like it never happened, I would stay stuck there. Now, that doesn't change that I forgave him. I forgave him before he said it. I forgave him for what he did before I knew exactly what was going on, because of a lot of reasons. Number one, I grew up in a family that taught forgiveness. I saw my mom and dad do that for each other. And because of my belief system, I believe in forgiveness. Now, it was a little bit easier with my husband than other people in my life who I've had struggles with forgiving. But it's going to be different in every relationship. Needless to say, all of that to say that we need the ability, when we are reconciling a relationship, to feel heard. Now, that's different than forgiveness, but it is a very necessary part of reconciliation, especially in reconciliation of a marriage, because both parties need to be heard. You need to understand the other person's point of view so that you can understand what you maybe didn't realize you did that you need to apologize for. The other person might see how things affected you that they had no idea affected you that way, which is only going to set you up for success in long-term reconciliation. What I mean by that is when you're rebuilding your marriage, When you are wanting to reconcile, restore it, you don't just want to go back to where you were. You want to make it better than it ever was before. And so that is why we at Marriage Helper have made such a really dedicated point and intention of teaching reconciliation in a way that provides hope, that provides a framework of exactly what you and your spouse need to do in order to move towards the actual reconciliation of your marriage. Because both of you need to understand each other's point of view and to come together in a way where you are willing to hear each other, apologize for what needs to be apologized for, both of you, and to make rules of engagement of how you want your marriage to look going forward, both of you, and compromise on that so that you know what your expectations are for the marriage that you're moving towards, the marriage that both of you want to have that you didn't have before, a marriage that can be better than it ever was before. That's why at Marriage Helper, we have created the new Exploring Reconciliation course. It's for you and your spouse to go through together when both of you are willing to explore reconciliation. There's two groups that this course is perfect for. The first group is the people who are saying, we're interested. I'm willing to consider what reconciliation might look like, even though I'm not committed to this marriage right now. So it could be that your spouse has been out of the marriage. You just have experienced a softening in your relationship to where your spouse is saying, I'm not committing to moving back in yet. I'm not committing to being 100% in the marriage right now at this point, but I would be interested in seeing if we could make it work. That's one group that this Exploring Reconciliation course is perfect for. The second group is where both of you are saying, I'm in it to win it. Absolutely 100%, but we need help in navigating how this works. Both of those groups, this is for you. Now, if you're in the spot right now where you're saying, my spouse has moved back in, but they're really still angry and negative and don't want anything to do with the marriage, then this isn't for you yet. We have other courses for you, the Save My Marriage course, or if you can get your spouse to agree to go with you to one of our turnaround weekend workshops that are online or in person when that is available, then that is a great option for you. But if you're in the point right now where you're wanting to reconcile well, then our Exploring Reconciliation course is perfect for you. But the bottom line of this is it's never too early to forgive. But if your fear around this is, well, if I forgive, does that mean that they're going to hurt me again? That they think that I'm okay with the fact that this happened? You're never going to have a guarantee in life. You could hold on to that unforgiveness and still get hurt. Or you could forgive, be a happier person, let that burden off of your shoulders. And might you get hurt again in the future? You might. But you know what? You can only control you and your reactions. And when you forgive, you find freedom. I struggled with unforgiveness for a person in my life for over 12 years. And I can tell you that it drove me crazy. I held on to it. It made me angry every time I thought of this person. Every interaction we had was a negative, and it would make me mad for days to come. And the only person it was hurting was me. When I learned how to forgive and that it was a decision and not a feeling, I can't tell you the freedom I found on the other side of that. And I want to encourage you to do that no matter what's happened in your life or in your marriage. There are people you need to forgive. And there are maybe some people who need to forgive you as well. But I encourage you to forgive quickly. Not in a way where it's just you say it but you don't actually make the change inside yourself, but in a way that you really release that need for vengeance towards the other person, where you really let go of the fear of saying, but if I forgive, does this mean that they're just going to do it to me again? And instead realize that forgiveness is for you. Even if you are having trouble forgiving and moving forward in your marriage, we believe there is hope for you, and we can help you forgive and move forward from this. in our reconciliation course, in our Save My Marriage course, or in any of our turnaround marriage weekends that we have. We would love to work with you and give you hope and guidance and frameworks and tools that will really give you what you need to restore your marriage, reconcile well, and forgive fully. We would love to help you however we can.